Hi, hello, welcome. I'm Bloom, if you don't know me already. Thanks for being here. This is going to be a little vlog of my progress as a beginner ceramicist, starting from absolutely no experience. I've just done one small workshop at the studio where I'm going to work at, and it was a 3-hour workshop where I did 1.5 hours of hand building and 1.5 hours of wheel throwing. So there's going to be a lot of trial and error and learning as I go along, because obviously you cannot learn everything in 3 hours. So you'll be seeing my progress over the next month or two, I think, and some of my first pieces that I'll ever make. And if any of you happen to be ceramicists yourselves and you have any tips, please leave them in the comments. I would love to know more. I thought it might be interesting to see a different perspective of ceramics, because I feel like a lot of ceramics content that I see are already professional ceramicists, so it always looks beautiful and it always turns out great. And I know that that's not going to be the case for me. Anyway, if that sounds like something you would like to watch, then you're in the right place, and I hope you enjoy the video. Good morning. It is 9 a.m. I just woke up 15 minutes ago. I'm very tired. But today's the first day I'm going into the studio, which I'm very excited about. That's the first time I've been able to say that. I've been waiting to say that for a long time. It'll be my first session there, and then I'll be there from 10 a.m. until 1:30 p.m., so a 3.5 hour session. I am not very good at trying new things, so this is quite a big new thing for me, and I'm pretty nervous, but I think it'll go well, and I'm also mainly excited. So, let's go. These are two of the cups that I made during my workshop that I did about a month ago at this point. I didn't get the chance to trim them, unfortunately. They just ended up drying, so there is some things that I would have liked to fix a little bit, but that's okay. I didn't end up filming the entire session because I was too nervous and stressed and not feeling very good, so I tried to just focus on clay making and not anything else. So I made these two little trinket dishes, which are going to be little pencils, which I think is going to be really cute, like on a desk. It's definitely not a lot for a 3.5 hour session, but it's all I managed. Okay, so I am back home. I felt very out of place, and because I'm a beginner as well, and because it's a new place, I really struggle with that, so that was very scary. So I did have to adjust to the new environment a bit, and I also had to try and figure out my way around the studio. I got a little tour, but there was still a lot that I had to figure out. I was originally planning to do throwing on the wheel, but then I didn't have all the tools that I needed with me, and I went to the store after my session and I bought all the tools that I need. So here's my little toolkit, so that for my next session I can actually do throwing on the wheel, because that's what I need to practice, because I don't have a lot of experience with that. Obviously I just did the one workshop last time, so I just have spent an hour and a half on the wheel total. I hope I look back at this video in like many weeks and I'm like, wow, I feel so much better with the space now and I feel so much more comfortable in my journey. That would be nice. Because right now it's feeling a little tough, it's feeling a little rough. I'm not gonna lie, I was really nervous going in this day. I was feeling a little nauseous from the stress and the anxiety, and I think because last time left me so emotionally drained, I was just really worried that this time would go somewhat similar. But to be honest, when I arrived, it already had a little bit of a familiar feeling, the space, and I felt a bit more like I work here now and that it was a bit more my space than last time I was there, and I have my own little shelf, so I just grabbed my things from my shelf and I made a plan beforehand what I wanted to work on. So I'd say it definitely went a lot smoother than last time, and it actually wasn't so nerve-wracking when I was there. I did get all my tools to be able to work on the wheel today, so I did work on the wheel. And that went interesting. As you can see, it did not go exactly as I was hoping. I had done my wheel workshop like a month ago, so I couldn't remember all the tips that she gave, and I think the clay I bought is quite a hard clay and not a soft clay, so I don't know if it's very beginner friendly. But this was sort of my plan, that I would have to go in and familiarize myself with the wheel and figure out centering again. So I wasn't really upset that it wasn't really working, like that was sort of what I was there to do. I had to remind myself that I'm a beginner and you're allowed to be bad at things at the start, and that's very normal. I did think going into it that I would come out with like 3 cups and like a couple bowls. I did end up only being able to make 2 cups, and I discarded a lot of clay because there was a lot of failed attempts, as you can see. Once I did my 2 cups, I was feeling confident, so I was like, okay, maybe I can make this idea that I have for a little incense holder slash jewelry holder. And that was a bit too ambitious. I wasn't at that level yet. I did film it beforehand because I had a sneaky suspicion that it wasn't gonna survive when I would try to take it off the wheel, because I did end up going a bit too thin. I also got back these lily pad trinket dishes, which I made during my workshop when I came about a month ago. These have already been bisque fired, so I just need to sand them down a little because I didn't get the chance to trim them and make them pretty, and then I can glaze them, so that's actually pretty exciting. I also submitted this cup, which was also from my workshop, to be bisque fired so that I can do a little test on it to see how I want to do underglazing, to see whether it works out better before or after bisque firing. And so I wrapped up my 2 cups. Hopefully they will dry slow enough so that I can come back to them in a couple of days to trim them, because the bottoms are very ugly. And I brought my 2 pencils home because I let them dry a little bit too long. They were there a week and a half, so they weren't really easy to be like trimmed anymore. So I'm going to sand them and hopefully make them pretty, and then I can also do underglazing on them at some point, which is pretty exciting. I made sure to come back a couple of days after making these cups, so I was hoping that they wouldn't have been too dried out so that I could still try trimming them, because it will be my first time trimming today, which is basically where you can carve away a bit at your piece and remove some things that you don't really like, which I have a couple of things because I'm a beginner still and some things did not go as I planned. And you can also create like a little foot at the bottom, which is what I tried to do today for the first time, and I think they turned out really well considering. The cups are definitely still wonky and a little bumpy in areas, and they're not perfect. I can tell you that, but for my first cups, I'm pretty happy with how they went. I also think the insides are super satisfying and it looks very beautiful on the inside. The outsides could still use some work, but for my first little feet and my first little trimming session, I think they're really cute and I really enjoyed the process of trimming, so I'm excited to do more of that as well. Looking at these cups and the cups that I made during my first workshop, so my first ever cups, I seem to be doing worse, which is interesting, but I think it has to do with the clay that I'm using, and also I was getting a lot of guidance during the workshop and now I have to try and remember all the tips, and that's a little bit tough. To finish my session, I decided to make an extra pencil trinket dish, this time a little wonky guy. I think he's gonna be so cute when he's done. I'm really excited for him. I think looking at my little pieces together like this, I feel pretty proud of what I've made so far. I haven't been to the studio in about 2 weeks, maybe more. I had a lot going on, and since ceramics is sort of my passion project at the moment, I often have to make the decision to work on my client projects and my other work instead, and then skip out on my ceramics, which is a bit sad, but I'm also really busy with work, which is a positive thing, even though I'm really tired. So I'm going back to the studio after about 2 weeks of not being there, so I'm a little bit nervous, but also kind of excited to get back to it and hopefully make some more things. I'm still hoping to have a couple things to sell at my market in December, which I'm organizing at Lucy's. My pieces dried out pretty nicely from the last session. I think they turned out pretty cute. As you can see, I'm sort of just making a lot of things with clay, and I'm not really reaching the glazing point yet because that one scares me a little bit, and I do want to do a workshop before I dive into glazing, which the studio does offer. Also, to be able to participate in the workshop, you obviously needed your own pieces to bring with you to glaze, so that's why I had to build up my stock a little bit before signing up for the workshop. I went back on the wheel today. It didn't go amazingly. I have this thing where the clay tears, it looks like, or the speed of the top part of the clay is at a different speed than the bottom part, so they sort of detach from each other. I did a little Googling after the session, and I think it has to do with the speed of my wheel when I'm pulling up walls should be slower. So that's something for me to work on next time. Today's the day I joined the glazing workshop, which I'm really excited about. I have 3 pieces with me that are bisque fired that I'm going to try glazing today. First, I have these 2 lily pad trinket dishes, which I'm going to be glazing in a dark green, which I think and I hope will turn out really nice. This part of the process is really interesting because you have no idea what it's going to look like until it's fired, so I can't tell you, but they look like they are going to be hopefully nice. And then I have this one little cup that I made during my workshop. that I decided to glaze in this rusty red color. I'm really curious to see how these are gonna look once they're fired. I hope they will be done soon. And I also gave in 3 more of my cups to be bisque fired. I'm feeling pretty good going into the studio today. I'm happy to report that I feel much more comfortable there, and the idea of going gets me really excited, and I no longer feel as nervous. Today I'm doing a bit of trimming on the 2 pieces that I made a couple days ago. This part is really satisfying and fun for me, and one of them is a bit more of a cup shape and the other one is a bit more of a bowl shape. I also found out in my workshop the day before that the glazes that I thought were underglazed in the studio are actually engobe, which is a clay slip mixed with pigments, so it's actually not a glaze. And I also found out that it works best on leather hard pieces, so a lot of my pieces I left to dry completely, to like bone dry. So it was not really recommended to use engobe for these pieces, but because I really wanted them to look like pencils, it didn't make sense to glaze them any other way, so I decided to give it a try anyway, and hopefully the engobe doesn't chip or crack or anything. I think this part of the process is also one of my favorite parts. Painting is what I know how to do, so this didn't feel very new to me and it didn't feel very stressful or tiring. So I was honestly just having a really good time. I was putting on my music, I was doing my painting. You have to use 3 layers of this painting if you want it to be solid color instead of like a watercolor effect. So this took quite a lot of time, but it was really fun, and I'm really excited that I can finally see what these pencils are going to look like, sort of. Obviously they're going to be a lot brighter and a lot more shiny at the end. And then I did also take this design from my sketchbook and put it on the leather hard piece that I made and just trimmed today. I also thought this would be interesting for me to see how the engobe does with the leather hard versus the completely bone dry ones, since the leather hard is recommended. I think this guy is going to turn out pretty cool. I didn't have time to finish it completely, but I got pretty far, and I submitted my 3 pencils to be bisque fired, so hopefully the next time I come they will be ready, fingers crossed. Now that I have a lot of pieces in different stages of the process, I made a little list for myself to remind myself of all the things that need to be done. I was hoping that the pieces that I put for the bisque firing would be done. Unfortunately, none of them were ready yet. So I decided to finish off this piece that I started last time. The cool thing about engobe is that it can go anywhere, which means you can paint the bottom of things, because for glazes and underglazes, it's usually not recommended because it can drip and then stick to the kiln shelves. And then I also decided to paint in my little bowl that I made last time. It was at this moment that I realized that I had kind of messed up because I didn't count the squares properly, so the design was not lining up. So that was a tiny bit sad, but I think it's okay. And then for our market that we're organizing in December, I'm making these little watermelon magnets to be sold at our Palestine fundraiser stand in collaboration with Antwerp for Palestine. I think they're turning out pretty cute. I hope they will be done in time, because that would be really nice to be able to include. And this is how my little apple bowl turned out. I think he's pretty cute, besides the fact that I miscounted. And my chain guy. So this was a pretty productive session. It took quite a long time to glaze all the watermelons, and I submitted everything to be bisque fired, so that's really exciting. I'm going to the studio today. Last time my pieces weren't ready yet from the bisque firing and the glaze firing. I think they should be ready today because it's been quite a long time. So that's really exciting. That'll be my first ever fully finished pieces. And then a couple more that I have to glaze further. And also my market is coming up sooner. It's in about 2.5 weeks, I think, maybe 2 weeks. Which means I need to hurry up if I want some of these pieces to be at my market. So I am going to go in today, it's Friday, and then this weekend I'm gonna work on all my deadlines that I have. Fingers crossed, I'm excited. So these are all the pieces I got back from bisque firing. I actually submitted a lot more than I remembered, so these were a lot of pieces suddenly, and it was really exciting to see how they were sort of almost going to look. And then I did get back a couple pieces from glaze firing, including this little cutie cup and my 2 lily pad trinket dishes, which I'm sure you've been waiting this entire video to see the finished product of. this was a really exciting moment. These are like my actual first finished pieces from start to end, and they're so shiny and pretty, and I also just didn't know what to expect, so I was really happy to see these. I don't know, it made me very excited for all the other pieces that I was going to make. The next step was to glaze fire my bisque fired pieces, which means I was going to end up with even more pieces finished soon. Putting the transparent glaze on my pencil trinket dishes was quite stressful because I didn't want to damage the engobe that I put onto it, and I also didn't want to drop it inside the bucket. I'm still pretty new to glazing, clearly. But everything went as planned. I even added transparent glaze onto the tops of my watermelon magnets, which I think is going to look really cute. And then I glazed all of the extra little cups that I have as well. So far, this has been a really rewarding experience, and I'm really happy that I finally decided to try out ceramics in the end, and I'm excited for all the things that I'm going to make. So I got all my pieces back from the studio and from the kiln, which I've been making for the past 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know how long it's been. So I thought I would show you all the pieces that I managed to make in the last couple of weeks as a beginner ceramicist. Starting with the first pieces that I made during my initial workshop at the studio, which are these two lily pad trinket dishes, which I think turned out really cute. I wasn't really surprised because sculpting this kind of hand building style is something that I was already able to do because I worked with air dry clay. So regarding like the shape, I was pretty comfortable working with the clay, and that wasn't too difficult for me. The part that I had no experience with was the glazing, so I was really curious how that was going to turn out, and I think they turned out really cute, especially as a set. I really love them, and for my first pieces ever, I think they're really nice. I really like them. And then next we have this little baby cup, which you've already seen a little sneak peek of. I think he turned out really cute. I love this glaze, and I'm definitely going to be using this glaze more. And I'm excited to go bigger because this kind of size I can't really do much with at the moment. I don't drink coffee, so I will enjoy him and treasure him as a little cup, but I'm not sure exactly what I will do with him besides look at him every once in a while and admire his beauty. Next up are my pencil trinket dishes. I ended up making 3 of these. These 2 were my first 2 that I made. I think they're really cute, honestly. I really love them, especially this little red guy. I almost want to keep him for myself, but I'm gonna sell him at the market, and if he doesn't get sold, I will keep him. I'm very happy. And then I have this one, which I liked the idea of it a lot, to be like a classic pencil look. I now know that this yellow will need like extra layers because I don't love that you can see the brush strokes. There's a couple cracks which I don't really know how to solve. The main problem with this one is how wonky he is. He's incredibly warped, and that was already from the initial drying stage, but I left him too long before I came back to the studio, so there wasn't much I can do about it. I decided to go and glaze it anyway to see how it looked, and then I would just keep him for myself. And then finally we have my little wonky wobbly pencil. This guy is really cute. I really love how he turned out. It does have some bubbles from the transparent glaze that I added on top, but I don't really mind how that looks, but I might have to try and figure out why those get there and how I could possibly avoid that for next time. But I think this one's really cute, and again, we'll sell him at the market. Tomorrow is the market, but if I don't sell him, then I'll be happy to keep him on my desk because I think he'll be a very cute, bright addition to a desk area. I think these 2 are probably some of the favorite things that I made so far, so I'm really happy that they worked out exactly as I envisioned, which doesn't usually happen with ceramics, I think, especially with glazes being quite unpredictable. And then we have this cup, which was the next cup I managed to make, and it was my first attempt at trimming, which I think I did a pretty good job with. The cup was a little bit wonky at first, but the glaze sort of smoothed everything out, which is great, so you can't see all the little things that I didn't do perfectly. And I think this glaze is just beautiful, so I'm really happy I chose it. I think the size is 1 size too small. It could have gone like 1 bigger, so it would be good for tea, but I think it's a pretty good size for coffee. But again, I don't drink coffee. I also tested him out with the hot water test, and he survived, which is amazing because I did trim the foot a little bit too thin, I was worried about. So far, I'm still working quite small. I would like to be able to go taller, but that is still a work in progress. And then I have these 2, which I made in my last session. This was me trying out the engobe painting style, the clay slip, to see how it would work. For this one, I miscalculated the squares, as you saw. So I left the squares with just 1 layer of painting. because usually you would put 3 layers, but that would take really long, and I already knew that the piece wasn't going to be as beautiful as I hoped because I messed up the counting. So I just did 1 layer, but that's also good for me to see sort of what that watercolory effect looks like. But in general, I like this idea a lot. I think the glazing just didn't go exactly how I wanted, so I might revisit this cute idea next time. And then I have this guy, which I was really unsure how he was going to turn out, but I think he's pretty cute. It has a little bit of a retro vibe, and the colors are a bit more faded than I thought. Like there's a little bit of a filter on top of it, but I think it looks pretty cool. You can see the brush strokes, which I think for sometimes I wouldn't mind, but I think for this one I would have liked it to be quite bold and like opaque. But in general, I think he's cute, and it was like my first attempt at more illustrative styles with the engobe, so I'm excited to try that out a bit more as well. I almost forgot that I also made these little watermelon magnets for the Palestine fundraiser at our market tomorrow. So these are also really cute. I'm not sure if I'll be making more because these were quite a lot of work, especially doing the 3 layers of engobe on each of them, but I'm happy that I made them in time for the market, and I think people will like them. So those are all the pieces that I managed to make. I think they turned out pretty good. I'm enjoying my new hobby, and I'm excited to see how I progress moving forward. I'll probably show more snippets of my progress as I go along in some other vlogs and things. And if you enjoyed seeing it and want to see more of my ceramics, let me know. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.